Chapter 4, World in the Making. A study of planet Earth raises many questions. Earth was not always the way it is now. Tremendous forces have been at work, shaping and reshaping the surface of our planet. We find evidence of these forces, but even so we know very little about Earth's past. One day, almost 3,700 years ago, on the island of Santorini in the Aegean Sea between Greece and Turkey, a 4,000-foot mountain shook. Then it exploded with the force of hundreds of hydrogen bombs. Hot volcanic fire shot miles into the sky, causing a fiery rain that spread out for miles, dropping ash 100 feet thick on nearby islands. Then the rest of the island of Santorini dropped into a deep hole in the sea, causing tidal waves hundreds of feet high, rushing outward at hundreds of miles an hour. Those waves smashed again and again into Crete, the nearby island center of a great civilization, and into other shores. Hundreds of thousands of people were killed, and the Minoan civilization was wiped out. Many people believe that stories about Atlantis, a mythical land that supposedly sank into the sea, are really stories about the Minoans and that terrible volcanic eruption. Today, we can still see the results of the eruption, marked on the surface of our Earth. We can dig through the volcanic ash that buried the nearby islands and filled the valleys of Crete 70 miles away. We can measure the 1,300-foot deep hole in the sea that the volcano blasted out. And we can see the huge building stones on Crete that were torn from ancient palaces and tossed about like matchsticks. Yes, there is evidence on Earth's surface of the terrible disaster that took place nearly 3,700 years ago. Shaking the foundations. The explosion of Santorini was a great catastrophe. Its recent discovery is just one of many discoveries that have affected the science of geology, which deals with the study of the Earth and its past. For decades, geologists accepted a teaching called uniformitarianism. This is the idea that what we find in Earth's rocks and on its surface can be fully explained by processes taking place today. Uniformitarian geologists rejected the idea that Earth ever experienced great global catastrophe, such as the flood described in Genesis. They argue that natural processes can account for everything given enough time. Uniformitarians taught that sedimentary rocks were formed from deposits laid down by flowing streams, local floods, and slow rises in sea level. At the same time, wind and rain gradually wore away hills and mountains. They believed the mountains were formed by a slow uplift of the ground or were caused by volcanoes. All this happened in a slow, gradual way. Today, however, the discovery of events like the Great Santorini Blast and the more recent eruption at Mount St. Helens have forced geologists to accept the idea that catastrophes have had a vital role in shaping Earth. Disappearance of the dinosaurs. Dinosaurs are the most fascinating of fossil creatures. We do not know how long they lived, but we do know that they disappear suddenly in the rock record. What happened to the dinosaurs? No one knows, but most scientists now believe they died in a great catastrophe. The name dinosaur means terrible lizard. There are many different kinds of dinosaurs. Most people are surprised to learn that some dinosaurs were small, about the size of modern chickens, but some were very large. Fossil bones of one of the largest dinosaurs were found near Albuquerque, New Mexico in 1986. This dinosaur has been named Seismosaurus, which means earth shaker. Earth shaker was up to 131 feet long. It stood 18 feet tall at the shoulder and 15 feet tall at the hip, and probably weighed between 40 and 60 tons. Today, a large elephant weighs only 7.5 tons. We can tell that some dinosaurs most likely ate plants for food when we study their teeth and jaws. Others, like the Tyrannosaurus, ate meat. We have found their teeth embedded in the bones of some of their prey, making it clear that they fed on other dinosaurs. The fossilized bones of many dinosaurs have been found. Most of the soft parts of their bodies have decayed, so we can only guess about their color and organs. However, since 2005, many scientists have reported discoveries of original soft tissues preserved in dinosaur bones. Collagen, various proteins, blood cells, osteocyte cells, and even blood vessels that are still soft and made of the original materials have been found in numerous studies. Scientists have also found preserved melanosomes, structures that indicate pigment color in the skin of ancient swimming reptiles, and in fossil bird feathers that indicate their colors. It seems likely that in the near future, we will have some indicator of dinosaur skin color too. There are animals alive today that may be much like dinosaurs. Alligators and the Komodo dragons of Indonesia can grow to nearly 20 feet long. Even so, it is clear that the giant reptiles and most of the tiny dinosaurs are not living today. It is not too surprising that dinosaurs aren't living today. Many species of animals have died out in the past. In the early 1800s, great herds of bison roamed America. Just a century later, they were hunted to near extinction. Today, they have recovered partially due to the conservation efforts of some ranchers. In 1800, millions of passenger pigeons literally darkened the sky as they flew by. Passenger pigeons are gone now, and the body of the last bird to die has been preserved and placed in the Smithsonian Institute in Washington, D.C. We've all heard of endangered species. Many kinds of birds and animals in our day are in danger of dying out too. So it is not surprising that the dinosaurs are gone. What was surprising to the uniformitarian scientist is that the dinosaurs seem to have died out suddenly, and their bones simply disappeared from the fossil record. In some rock strata or layers, there are dinosaur bones and even dinosaur eggs, but in the next rock layers right above them, there's no evidence of dinosaurs at all. Was Earth struck by a giant asteroid? One increasingly popular theory was developed by a team headed by Nobel Prize-winning physicist Luis Alvarez and his geologist son Walter. They believe that an asteroid the size of Manhattan Island struck the Earth. Such a giant rock hurtling through space would have hit our planet with terrific force. The pair argue that the asteroid's impact would have thrown enough dust into the air to darken the skies for up to 10 years. As evidence, they point to a half-inch thick clay layer in which the element iridium is 30 to 60 times higher than normal. This layer is found in many, but not all places, around the world and marks the end of what geologists call the Cretaceous period. They further claim that nearly 3/4 of all living things also died out during this event. They further speculated that with the planet darkened by atmospheric dust, years of cold would have caused a global environmental catastrophe. Even months of darkness would have caused countless deaths. They suggested that perhaps the dinosaurs died out because they could not survive the changes such an asteroid would cause. Most scientists are willing to believe that Earth was struck by asteroids. They even agree with the Alvarez's evidence that an asteroid hit Earth off the coast of Mexico. They point to a circular gravity anomaly there on the edge of the Yucatan Peninsula that is up to 110 miles across. But other scientists do not think an asteroid made the dinosaurs die out. There might have been millions upon millions of tons of dust, as the Alvarez's think, yet rains would wash it from the atmosphere. The asteroid strike might have cooled the Earth for a time, but would it have darkened the planet for years? No one knows for sure. What is important is that at last, people who believe in evolution are looking for causes beyond our planet to explain what has been called the Great Dying of the dinosaurs. For many years, any catastrophe theory was laughed at because of science's uniformitarian bias. In fact, one famous British geologist, Dr. Derek Ager, published a book to show that all the basic formations of Earth's crust demand a catastrophic explanation. The last words in his book claim that the history of any one part of the Earth, like the life of a soldier, consists of long periods of boredom and short periods of terror. The Death Star Theory. 2 University of Chicago scientists have come up with another theory. They think there have been many great dyings of plants and animals on Earth. What is more, they think these mass dyings have happened regularly every 26 million years. The scientists J. John Sapkowski Jr. and David Raup wondered what single, regular, and terrible event could cause such disasters. They think the cause might be in space. They think that somewhere in the sky a small dark star swings around our sun. They argue that this star comes close enough to affect the cloud of icy comets called the Oort cloud that is thought to circle our sun out beyond the farthest planet. When this happens, they say, many of the comets are pulled out of their path and plunge towards the sun. On the way, some of them strike Earth. It was these icy comets, Sapkowski and Raup say, that chilled Earth and made the dinosaurs die out. Few scientists believe the Death Star theory, and the Death Star, which Sapkowski and Raup named Nemesis, has not been found. In fact, one scientist thinks the notion of a sudden death of the dinosaurs due to an asteroid or Death Star is science gone absolutely bonkers. Furthermore, the assumed Oort cloud is based on no observational evidence and may not even exist as a source of comets. Yet other scientists think these theories make an important point. No longer should scientists think that everything we find on Earth must be explained by what is happening on our planet now. Something outside our planet, beyond the natural processes geologists can observe today, may be needed to explain the record in the rocks. Continents that move. Without question, no theory has had greater impact on modern geology than the theory of continental drift, or properly called plate tectonics. More than any other discovery, it has shaken the uniformitarian bias of geologists and led to a revolution in scientific thinking about Earth's past. Enduring mysteries have constantly plagued the science of geology. Geologists could not explain many features of the Earth. They have found desert-like sandstones swept into giant rock ripples by powerful currents of water. This sandstone, up to 100 feet thick, stretching for hundreds of miles, is a record of ancient rushing waters written in the stone. In 1960, a party of geologists found 30-inch wide dinosaur tracks only 800 miles from the North Pole. If dinosaurs were cold-blooded, they could not have survived in the frigid climate far above the Arctic Circle. Even more stunning, the top of Mount Everest and the tops of other mountain ranges contain rocks and fossils that were once underwater. When was the top of the Earth's highest mountain under a sea? And how was that rock lifted over 5 miles above sea level? Today, because of the newly accepted theory of plate tectonics, some mysteries may be explained. The outer part of the Earth is not a single solid sheet. The crust is only 4 to 6 miles thick under the ocean, but is 20 to 25 miles thick under continents. Under the seas, Earth's crust, which seems to be solid, is really only about as thick as a thin coat of paint would be on a house. The brittle plates, properly called the lithosphere, are actually composed of both crust and upper mantle, and only extend down to a depth of about 60 miles. Scientists have learned by studying earthquakes that the lithosphere is cracked, something like a giant eggshell. The center of our planet, its core, is about 2,200 miles in diameter. Scientists believe that there is a solid inner core and a liquid outer core of molten iron and nickel. Above the core is the mantle, about 1,800 miles deep, composed of lighter but also very hot rock. The lithosphere of the Earth, the hard plate-like layer on the surface of our planet, rests on top of the mantle. Each continent rests on one of these plates. There are about 20 plates, and today they seem to drift slowly about on the surface of the Earth. When the idea that continents drift was suggested in 1915, people laughed. The notion was argued by the German meteorologist Alfred Wegener. Wegener noticed that South America fits against Africa, like one piece of a jigsaw puzzle fits into another. But the scientific community ridiculed the idea. The theory seemed to call for some terrible cataclysm to explain how the continents could have moved. In fact, Wegener was not the first to think that the continents once had been together and then split apart. In 1666, a French monk wrote a book titled The Breaking Up of the Greater and Lesser Worlds, or it is shown that before the deluge, the Genesis flood, America was not separated from the other parts of the world. But in 1915, most scientists were committed to uniformitarianism, and anything that seemed even to imply a cataclysm was automatically rejected. So they laughed at Wegener's idea. Today, geologists think the continents did drift, and today are still moving away from each other, but at the rate of about 1 or 2 inches a year. As the great plates on which the continents rest drift, super-hot lava rises slowly along great undersea faults, like deep cracks in the sea bottom. As the lava squeezes up from below, new sea bottom is formed. It is believed that even this tiny movement and the pressure it creates causes most of the earthquakes that disturb our planet every year. Because scientists believe that the continents are drifting now, nearly all have come to accept the idea that once, long ago, America, Africa, Asia, and the other continents were linked. Together they formed a supercontinent that is called Pangaea, a name that means all Earth. Today, geologists explain many of the mysteries on Earth by using this theory. They say the Sahara Desert in Africa may have drifted from the South Pole to the equator, where it lies today. But even this theory cannot explain all the mysteries discovered on the surface of our Earth, as we'll see in the next chapter. Cataclysms on Earth? That word cataclysm is an important one. It means a violent and sudden change, or a disaster that affects the Earth's crust. Geologists, who once ridiculed catastrophe theories, today realize that cataclysms have happened in the past. One writer says, today, now that Earth scientists have accepted Wegener's vision of shattered and sundered continents, it is easier perhaps to contemplate other catastrophes in the record, the sudden onset of ice ages, the nightmare notion of the runaway greenhouse, the monstrous flooding of the scablands. It is only recently that such rude shocks to the Earth have entered the domain of sober and respectable discussion in scientific journals. It is interesting how much of our thinking about the Earth is shading toward catastrophic theories. Much of the Earth's history will remain forever mysterious, but one thing is clear. What scientists have recently learned about Earth's past point toward a world shaped not only by slow processes, but also by cataclysms. What about the Genesis flood? There is no question that the Bible describes a terrible flood in ancient times. That flood undoubtedly occurred. What is uncertain is just what effect the flood had on Earth's crust. Some Christians believe that the flood is the best explanation for the thrusting up of mountain ranges and even for the initial breakup of the continents. Many creationists have pointed out that fossils have been found, jumbled together, as though swept into place by an overwhelming flood of waters. Other creation geologists suggest that the plates moved very rapidly during the flood, possibly at rates of yards per second. At the present, though, we can't say for sure just what features of Earth the Genesis flood is responsible for. What we can say is this: most geologists scoff at the notion of a worldwide flood, just as they once scoffed at the notion of other cataclysms. Yet they can no longer deny that important features of planet Earth have been shaped by cataclysms. Perhaps soon more evidence will enable us to tell just what affects our results of the Genesis flood.